Not correct, but if we agree with him, all right. The problem is Zenless Zone Zero. Just check it out.
I think it's about time we had this conversation. Zenless Zone Zero has been receiving a lot of criticism these past few months. Some of this criticism comes
To be fair, what game doesn't nowadays?
from things going inside of the game, and some of them are external factors like the whole Contra situation revolving the game. This has caused a lot of disruption within the community that's still growing and still forming.
Okay, before we get into any controversies that are going on, I have heard, sort of on Twitter, there's a lot of people are kind of mad because I don't know which character it was. There's a character in the game that people have been getting a bit excited about, shall we say. I think you know what I'm on about. And Hoyo have been pushing this character, and then just recently have released some lore on the character, shall we say. And she's a schoolgirl. And I think a lot of people are mad because I think a lot of people have been maybe tugging it to what they've now found out is a pixelated schoolgirl. So I think they're a little bit mad about that, which I guess I can understand. You know, they're kind of been baited by Hoyo there, really.
In its infancy, and I believe it's causing somewhat of a disconnect between viewers and creators. I believe a lot of these things that's been going on has been making players feel like that.
So the thing is now, I've got to be careful. I don't know which character it is. We might sit and look and be like, damn, look at that character, and then be like, oh shit, yep, that's the schoolgirl.
Maybe they can't trust some of the opinions coming from creators because they feel like that everybody is signed by a Hoyo contract and they can't honestly speak how they want to. And I know for a fact this isn't a case for a lot of the creators I have met so far. We've just been genuinely excited about the game, but I wanted to make sure to make this type of video because I don't want to feel like that I'm only preaching about the good aspects of the game. I mean, I even came out with a video making suggestions for them to improve upon with the game because the game can use some nice improvements in order to make it a lot better. But I also don't think that's enough because there has been like some few ads and stuff going around of creators outside of the space giving a lot of their honest thoughts about the game, and because they aren't within the space or don't really dwell within gacha, a lot of them are just saying really nice things about the game because they don't understand the aspects that a lot of people within the space are very critical of. So
I think that's fair for people to do, though. You don't have to be a gacha gamer to give your viewpoint on a gacha game. Separate from the gacha mechanic and playing other gacha games, really. At the core of it, it's a video game, and anybody who plays games or even doesn't play games can have a critical thought process on that.
So I wanted to provide all my input on all
without it being less than
the problems I'm having with Zenless Zone Zero, but I not only want to do that, I'm also going to be making a follow-up video telling you guys why I am super excited about the game as well. My goal with this channel is to always be transparent regarding wherever games I'm covering. I'm going to always be honest with everything I say because I don't want to be feeding false information to anyone. So with that being said, let's get into all the issues with Zenless Zone Zero. Now, the first thing we're going to bring up, we're going to get it out of the way. We're going to talk about the TV mode. The TV mode is something that nobody has really liked since this first.
I was going to say, I've never been able to even get what their deal is with this because I haven't really watched too much footage and gameplay because, as I say, I kind of want to enjoy it for myself. But I've seen little clips of this TV and I don't know what the frick is going on with it. And pretty much everybody I've heard from has said they don't like it. So
inception, because it was actually pretty forced upon unto us throughout majority of the game. Everybody mentioned how gruesome the TV mode was in CBT 1. It got a little bit better in CBT 2, but its biggest improvements came between CBT 3. The downside of that is that because of CBT 1 and 2, a lot of people were already kind of turned off with the game and just felt like that they weren't going to remove enough about it in order for them to enjoy the game. And that depends on the person if that's mostly true or not. In my opinion, for me, within CBT 3, the amount of TVs that were there were a decent amount, but it felt like I was playing more of the combat sections of the game than actually playing TV mode, which was a big issue a lot of people had in the other betas. It felt like you was playing more TV than any of the combat, but they definitely...
Say it again. I've said it so many times. So much of the combat, we'll find out soon, but so much of the combat, the enemies look so passive.
Fix that up so far, but I think that even with this, it doesn't completely resolve the issue of TV mode because people...
I'm not sure if that's been designed for mobile or what, but it just always catches my eye every time I'm watching footage. I kind of drift off from what the person's saying because I'm looking at the combat going, the enemy seems super docile.
Already have that bad taste in their mouth of not enjoying the mode entirely, so a lot of people just want it completely gone. And I know from a perspective of a developer, expecting them to completely remove this functionality of the game when it not only holds a core gameplay mechanic, but when it's also integral to how they're going to be pushing the story, it's honestly hard to completely remove it from something, so they just have to lessen the load of it. And I think the true balance,
it's something that could be slowly removed via patches and updates as we go from 1.0 to 1.1 to whatever. Definitely, if it's a core mechanic that's really nobody likes, I think it's in their best interest to reduce it as much as possible or remove it. And that's definitely possible. If they can't just yank it out of the game right now, they can tone it down to the point where it's almost not there over successive updates easily.
of TV mode and gameplay won't really be finalized or really be completely done until either the other half of 1.0 when Jué releases, or when 1.1 finally comes here. I think all of the improvements they made so far to the TV mode is definitely in the right direction, and they've already commented that they will be further improving it and making the aspects of the games people enjoy a lot more of a more focal point, which is very good to hear. I think if they just add a bit more diversity in how the TV mode essentially looks and plays, it'll make it a bit better, because I understand the aesthetic of them being in this dark world of technology and the proxies are using it to traverse through the Hollow Zero and all of that good stuff. I think the premise of that is very interesting. I just think the visibility of being in the TV mode for so long and having this dark, gray, dull atmosphere in your forefront for a good chunk of a gameplay kind of gets drowned out and becomes pretty boring over time. I think
it's still all bright anyway. It just seems kind of boring. You know, this game, you want to get into the combat. Of course, you want different elements of a gameplay loop and variations in what you're doing. Or if this is a large portion of the game, and it's going to suck. So even before I've played it, I haven't even seen what it's about, and I might have a different viewpoint. But it's easy to assume, looking at this, if this is a large part of the game, I'm not going to really like that. And I would definitely say straight away, let's make it a smaller part of the game as fast as possible, definitely.
Need to add a little bit more vibrancy and excitement with the mode in order to complement it a bit better with the gameplay, kind of similar to how they did with the arcade game. If they can kind of crossbreed that and implement that more within the TV mode, I think it'll be consumed and perceived a lot better than what it has already. Next is the combat. Now, combat is something I have been, I guess you could say, defending for a good much, because I believe the combat of the game is pretty good. I just think that a lot of people's expectation for the combat is more so coming from the fact that they saw Withering Waves, or that they've been playing Withering Waves and they
see, this has been my biggest worry, that Wuthering Waves is going to ruin all these other sort of games for me, just from the fact of how freaking good the combat is in Wuthering Waves and how competently it's done, how tight it is, how well made it is, and that we're going to go to play other games and it's just not going to hit. Like, I haven't played Genshin since, but I genuinely feel like Genshin is going to feel trash going back to it, just from a movement standpoint for one, but the combat is going to feel so dead in comparison, and I'm a little bit worried about that I might get that same feeling from these, but we'll wait and see. Just the enemies though, again, super docile. Yeah, what's up, cheese?
Expect more from Zenless, which is understandable. I just think that in a realistic fashion, Zenless Zone Zero and Withering Waves are going to have two different forms of combat and what they feel is more appropriate for the audience that they're aiming for. I've made this analogy a lot of times.
As well,
Zenless Zone Zero is the Granblue Fantasy Versus of gacha games when it comes to its combat. If you don't know what that means, Granblue Fantasy Versus is a very beginner-friendly fighting game. It is one of the easiest fighting games to anybody to get into, and it's one of the main ones a lot of people will recommend or suggest.
Damn, I should get into that then, because I am absolutely trash at fighting games. I used to love playing Tekken when I was a kid, and I thought I was good then, but I was a kid, so obviously I got no reference point. But any fighting game that I try and get into now, and I do like them, I see new ones come out, and man, this looks cool, and I play it, and I play through the story, fine, and then I'm like, you know what? Shall we have a little dabble of multiplayer? And I just get bodied, and I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't think this genre's for me.
to get into the genre. This is how I view Zenless Zone Zero when it comes to the combat aspect. Its focus is to be very simplified and easy for people to get into, similar to Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, but they can pull a similar fashion of what Versus did with Grand Blue Fantasy Versus Rising and add more depth to it, which I imagine they would do in the future of Zenless Zone Zero.
That's totally fine. Hopefully that happens soon, but that's totally fine for something to be easy to get into, but have a higher ceiling of complexity to learn as you progress. I'm fine with things being totally beginner friendly, but hopefully that's not just everything. As I say, I don't mind the combat being simple as long as it's engaging, enjoyable, but can be difficult at the same time. But my worry is that because it's obviously for mobile as well, they're going to make it not the combat so much easy, but the enemies easy. So make simplified combat easy enemies. That's not going to be engaging and enjoyable, really, especially on PC.
The issue with that is that
difficult
with
to
the
master,
current combat
exactly.
of the game and how it is, and depending on how they implement those improvements will need to be more than just adding new characters into the game. It will need to be overall improving the core functionality of combat for the game, surface, and even buffing up and adding new things for previously introduced characters prior to newer units coming in. What I mean by that is expanding upon combos for characters, giving them new moves, or making different animations for them so that they feel a bit different. Pretty common comment that I see people bring up is that they tend to reuse animations quite a bit with some of these characters coming in, and I do agree that it does become noticeable, especially when you do special attacks and stuff. But this is a smaller development team, so I very much expected reusability when it comes to animation, but that doesn't excuse it. With this game having such a great pre-registration number,
yeah, I think this might end up being like the poo kind of game, hadn't you know, where you play it while you have a shit, maybe, or maybe while you're on the train or the subway or commuting, or you've just got 5 minutes and you're like, let me do some dailies, maybe. I hope there's a little bit of extra there for people like me, though. We might want to dump a few hours in here and there. But obviously, I'm saying all this before I've even played the game.
And if they can have a successful launch, I'm hoping that they can take the amount of money they make and add more into the depth and complexity of the combos and the animations of characters, so it feels like you're doing more than just doing a spamming left click or some sort, and actually providing difficulty to kind of force you to do more than just that, which is the next problem with the game. If you made it this far into the video, be sure to join my Zenless Zone Zero Battle Pass giveaway. I'll be giving away battle passes for the game to celebrate the release of the game, and all you have to do to enter is make sure you are subscribed to the channel and comment down below. What is one issue that you have?
Going back to the combat, I think it's just an element that happens with bringing it to mobile. This is why Wuthering Waves needs to get on console quick. Needs to happen, because I think Zenless is going to lose a massive portion of its revenue from mobile. One, the game just doesn't run very well on mobile, and I don't think it ever will until we get maybe a next generation of mobile phones. I suppose you could get to a playable level maybe, but with how complex, well, not complex, but how good the combat is in Wuthering Waves, I just, coming from somebody who can't play games on mobile anyway, I just feel like you just really wouldn't be able to do some of the more difficult content. And I bet there's videos out there proving me wrong right now of people smashing higher tier content on mobile, but I've seen the game running on mobile and it looks dire. So I think they really need to get the game out to consoles, because the PC player base is obviously going to be a lot smaller than probably what they're going to get on console and mobile. Definitely mobile. So I think they need to get that game out on console straight away, because I don't want them to cater too much to mobile personally, because I think that's when you have these simplified systems, because you can only get so complex on a phone, can't you? Because the system, the mechanics have been able, what you get, you know, you're using a touchscreen unless you're using a pad. And majority of people are going to be using a touchscreen, so it's going to have to be designed around that, which is going to mean it's going to need to be simplified. Content's going to need to be streamlined and easier as well. And obviously, for us PC console gamers, that's going to take away quite a lot, really.
have with Zenless Zone Zero that you wish would be resolved. I would love to hear you guys' feedback on this topic, so be sure to comment down below and enter into the giveaway. But I don't want to hold you guys up any longer. Let's get back into the video. I think the game has an issue of actually establishing true difficulty. They've added a false sense of difficulty by making characters or making enemies tankier, which is a very poor decision to do when people are having issues with your game.
Damage sponges.
They have added a hard mode for the story mode, which was a great addition to the game, but
Okay,
it
this is
doesn't
a
make the
difficulty
story mode hard. But I think that aspect isn't
that
too
sucks.
big of an issue with me, since they have like the challenge mode for story modes, which you get to
Watch this. I'm saying all this and we'll get into like our first boss or something and get bodied.
replay story missions you've already done, and they are definitely a lot more difficult than what the original story playthroughs are, which is great to see. But when we say add more difficulty to Zenless Zone Zero, we aren't meaning by making these enemies beefier and like making them longer, harder to kill. We mean like provide them unique animations, so we have to learn to fight against them a lot better. Like the final boss with
You want patterns, you want mechanics, especially with bosses. You want patterns, you want mechanics. You want, obviously I haven't played this, like how you've got in Wuthering, especially with an action game. You want systems like parries, dodges, to add that extra level to the combat, so it's not just left click, left click, left click, left click, left click until it dies, you know? It's no different than when you've got third-person shooter games and they're like, right, this is the hard mode here. The character's got quadruple the health. It's like, okay, that's just, you know, extending the fight. It's not making it more difficult.
Then Zenless, just a big fly boss at the end. That is what I want true difficulty of the game to somewhat show. It's a shame that we have to get that far within Zenless to really see what
I will say though, the game does look great though. I love the aesthetic, the art style, the design. It's all chef's kiss.
difficulty can truly be for the game. But what that does show me is that they do have an idea of how they want to implement that, and hopefully that they further spread that across the game, whether that be for 1.0 release or by 1.1, which I do think a lot of these things will get fixed and addressed and very much improved by the time 1.1 comes around. But yeah, that's all the issues I have with the game. I think a lot of issues that I stated and addressed can be crucial in some aspects, but are things that I can get past.
Dude, the combat and difficulty is the most crucial thing. It's the core gameplay loop. So if that is a problem, then it's going to be a problem, isn't it? As I say, we still haven't played the game, so we're going to find out. But I almost feel, listening to this, obviously we'll make our own viewpoints and conclusions when we play it, but it almost feels like this is the action Puyo game for people who like Honkai, because obviously Honkai's turn-based RPG. It feels like here's a little action game for you guys who play a lot of Star Rail, rather than maybe people who play Genshin and other action games of here's another action game. It feels like it's kind of aimed at that sort of crowd of, hey, you know, when you're not playing Honkai, how's about you play this semi-action game potentially?
And I've already gotten past, and I believe from a lot of articles and interviews and stuff that the producers have stated, and a lot of the improvements they have made from each closed beta test, that they will fix the majority of these issues in due time. I believe in the game. I think it's really good, and I believe once they address these problems, the game will be in a very strong place. I already think there's going to be a pretty solid start for it at release anyway, just because it's a HoYo game. But I want the game to be able to stand on its own, not only because it's a HoYo game, but because it is a good game that people will enjoy, similar to HSR. Hopefully that was me being a lot more transparent for you guys on how I feel about the game. And again, I'm going to be creating a video telling you guys why I'm excited for, essentially why I love Zenless Zone Zero for what it is, regardless of how everybody else feels. That doesn't mean the game is perfect, and it doesn't mean they can't fix anything, but that's just how I personally feel for the game, because it fits the things that I like in video games, which will go in a deeper discussion in the follow-up video. Well, I appreciate you guys and all your love and support. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and always remember,
check him out, guys. Sol, show him some love. Transparent video, I like it. Okay, so I think as well, I need to temper my expectations and understand and try and get my head around what I think they're potentially going with this game. Because obviously after playing Wuthering Waves and having this expansive world that they're trying to build something, you know, something quite big in terms of like what Genshin is, and I guess kind of what like Honkai is, totally different genre in how the game plays, but you know, an expansive, continuing world. I think this potentially is just something that's a little bit smaller, bit more compartmentalized, that you're supposed to potentially play in short bursts. They even did say, didn't they? I can't remember where it was said exactly or who said it, but it was somebody involved with Zenless said that they're totally cool with players, and it's kind of designed like that for people to come in, play the game, drop it, and come back at later dates. So that makes me think it is going to have small chunks of content that you can fly through, grind it out, and then drop it, and then come back. Which, to be fair, a lot of gacha games are like that anyway. But I suppose it's just on how much content there is there to do that with. But yeah, guys, the problem is Zenless Zone Zero made some good points. I guess we'll see if we agree with them. I'm kind of thinking, just looking at the combat, I'm probably going to agree with a lot of the viewpoints there. Which shows a terrible time to pause the video there. But yeah, so show him some love and go watch his content.